Welcome to IM Plainsboro. My name is Anthony Cancro, Township Administrator, and today we're joined with Police Chief Guy Armour, and we're going to be talking about body cameras. Before we get into that, Chief, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been a police officer, a chief, and a little bit about the Plainsboro Police Department.
Sure. I've been a police officer with the Plainsboro Township Police Department for, I will be completing actually my 23rd year this year. I came up through the ranks of the police department. I started as a patrol officer. Subsequently, about 3 years after I was here as a patrol officer, I was given the opportunity to be placed as a transfer into the Detective Bureau. I served in the the Detective Bureau for approximately 10 years. I served as a juvenile officer / detective, and I ran all of the juvenile programs, DARE program, and all of the school-related programs for 10 years, which really gave me insight into the community policing aspect and what we do here in Plainsboro. We have a long-standing history in Plainsboro of community policing and proactive style of policing and being close with the community with which we serve. Right now, our police department is comprised of 36 sworn law enforcement officers. The patrol division has a sergeant, a corporal, and 3 patrolmen assigned to four squads. The traffic bureau has a traffic sergeant and several traffic officers. The detective bureau has a detective sergeant and 3 detectives. And we have an administrative corporal who is assigned to the accreditation process. That is always a continual, ongoing thing. And we have also an officer that is assigned to administrative purposes for all of the associated accreditation processes as well. We have 3 administrative staff personnel that assist us with all of our daily activities. Quite frankly, we could not exist without them and the job that they do. And we also have 6 civilian dispatchers and 3 emergency service technicians. So we have approximately 49 people under our tutelage, and we work very well together.
Thanks, Chief. You mentioned accreditation. I think that's a very important aspect of what the police department has achieved. Why don't you tell the public a little bit about how important that is? What does it mean that you've done, and how does it prepare the police force for the future? What
accreditation really stands for is, it was originally formulated by CALEA, and CALEA is an agency that basically comes into police departments and verifies that you are performing the best standardized law enforcement practices in the industry. Currently, we are accredited by the New Jersey State Association of Chiefs of Police, and basically the tenet of the accreditation process is when we handle calls for service, when we go out and we have dealings with the public and the citizens, there are certain ways that we are supposed to handle certain types of incidents, whatever the incident may be. What accreditation deals with is specifically how we handle those items in the most professional way as police officers. There are very strict guidelines that allow us and allow the officers to have a better understanding to the performance of their duties every day, from the beginning of their day to the end of their day. And if they follow those guidelines and those procedures, what it does is it has the community inevitably has more confidence in the job we do as police officers, and they also get a better understanding of what we do as a police department. And furthermore, it also indemnifies, it helps to indemnify the police department for civil liability purposes when we can prove that we have done something as per an accreditation guideline or rule or regulation or something that we followed, and we followed it to the letter of the law. It helps us better defend ourselves as a township, saying that we follow the best standardized practices in the law enforcement industry.
So that means that there has to be certain policies that all the police know about. They're in the files.
There are less than 15% of the police departments in New Jersey that are currently accredited. And basically what it is there are New Jersey Attorney General guidelines that we have to follow. There's township policies and procedures that we have to follow. And there's our own policies and procedures and rules and regulations and general orders. So what we're tasked with when it comes with accreditation is maintaining the constant new rules that are coming into play and coming into effect through revised case law, through the United States Supreme Court, through the New Jersey Supreme Court, and we're constantly updating our files to make sure that we are following the best standardized practices. And new case law comes in every day that we have to deal with to make sure that we're following the current policies and the procedures that we should be following.
So you had accreditation, and just recently you were recertified or gained accreditation.
That's correct.
And how long did the first round of
accreditation? The accreditation lasts for 3 years. And basically what happens from period to period is after you're accredited, it doesn't just end there. The next phase of the accreditation process is actually, believe it or not, preparing after the day that you become reaccredited, you're wind up preparing for the next accreditation process. So for example, anytime you go out to, and I'll just throw an example out there, if you go out to a job, for example, a fire, a large fire in the Township of Plainsboro, we institute what's called the Incident Command System. And under the Incident Command System, there are certain procedures that have to be followed by the officer who's in charge at the scene, the fire department that's currently on the scene, and all the officers that are at the scene. So what we do is we basically build that, in that case, an incident command system, and we build a file to prove that we followed the incident command system per the accreditation guidelines, and that will show the next time we go to be reaccredited that we followed the previous guidelines that were set forth by the New Jersey State Association of Chiefs of Police.
Tell us a little bit about the new technology that law enforcement are going to be implementing nationwide, and particularly in Plainsboro, the idea of the body-worn cameras, what they are, what they hope to do, how will they make Plainsboro and the police department more secure and safe?
Our department has always been at the forefront of technology in regards to very specifically cameras. We were one of the first departments in the state of New Jersey to actually go to the mobile vision cameras in cars. So we have a precursor to the actual body cameras, and our officers have become very comfortable with the usage of the camera. They understand how it works, they understand why it works, and they understand the importance of having the camera on them when they're there. This body-worn camera, and I guess I'll explain the more of what it's about, will allow us and gives us the ability to basically have more evidence of what happens when an officer actually goes out to a scene or encounters situational events out on the road. So what the body-worn camera, and the reason for body-worn cameras is, it gives the officers, it gives the citizens, again, more transparency into events that officers deal with on an everyday basis. It could be going to a fire call, it could be going to a first aid call. There's a myriad of things that officers do on a daily basis. However, the body-worn camera is just another step and another item that will help enhance our officers' ability to do their jobs effectively, and also for the citizens to have more trust and transparency in the process itself as to what we do in law enforcement.
Chief, tell me how the new body-worn camera will integrate with the existing cameras in the vehicles.
One of the important things that we did at our police department, and one of the practices that we practice, is what's called participative management. And what we did was, before we actually chose a body camera manufacturer, we knew we were going to be replacing our in-car video cameras as well. So one of the things that was important to us was that we had integration between the body-worn camera and the in-car mobile vision camera. And coincidentally, when we tested and evaluated, I had officers at all levels, corporals, sergeants, test and evaluate the actual body-worn camera itself and seeing the footage and how it works. And we actually chose the TASER body-worn camera system. What we found out was TASER also has an in-car video camera system that works in conjunction with the body-worn camera. So what happens is they are actually synced together. And what does that mean? What that means is when an officer turns on their lights on their car internally, not only does the mobile vision car camera activate, but the body-worn camera activates. Vice versa, when you activate your body-worn camera, your in-car camera also activates as well. So they work in conjunction together. When they are turned on, they're turned on together, and when they're turned off, they're turned off together. So it helps that the process of having the same manufacturer with the in-car camera and the body-worn camera, it helps that they are the same manufacturer, because they learned that the integration between the two cameras is much better.
So one advantage of the body-worn camera is that it's mobile. So when you leave the police vehicle, moving away from the car and the existing camera in the car, it allows you to follow the scene or follow the officer where you go. You just want to talk about that?
So the advantages of the body-worn camera actually being used out in the field is your car is not always available on the interior mobile vision car camera to go where the officer goes. Mm-hmm. So when you respond to calls for service and you're actually being involved with citizens and you're taking calls for service, the body-worn camera basically is there to show a true account of the events that happen. Okay. So once again, it falls back on that transparency issue. So the body-worn camera is mounted in several ways on the officers. In a patrol officer that wears a uniform like I have on today, it can be mounted with a very heavy magnet that goes in the pocket right onto the left side breast pocket of the shirt. Okay. Or it can be mounted on the center of the uniform itself. For the officers that are in the Special Services Division, they will each have their own body cameras as well. But because they don't have a left breast pocket, where they will do is they will attach it to the actual belt itself, as you would see here on the belt. The body-worn camera, and just to give you some examples of the functions of the camera and how it works, it is always in on mode. In on mode means when you see the green light flashing, it means that there is a 30-second buffer that I will explain more in a second. In on mode, unless the officer is, there are privacy issues for the officer. If the officer is on break, they are allowed to turn the body-worn camera off when they are on break.
And how do you turn it off?
If you turn the camera off, it's a simple flip of the switch, and you can actually hear the sound when the camera goes off, that it's physically off. And the officer actually also feels a slight buzzing on the uniform indicating that it's off. Okay. And when you turn it back on again,
it's immediately back on?
It takes approximately 6 seconds for it to go back into play and back into full active mode. So when the officer does decide to start a body-worn camera recording, there's an actual big button that you can see here on the front. This button, in case of accidental activation, must be pressed twice. So to activate the body-worn camera, the officer will click the button twice. He will immediately get an indication of the camera being activated with another buzz, and that green light that you see on the camera actually turns to red. Okay. So that way the officer knows that the camera is currently activated. Now, I previously explained the 30-second buffer. The great thing about the body-worn cameras and the systems that we have chosen is there is what they call a pre-event buffer. In the case of an officer turning on his body-worn camera, what happens is when the camera is immediately turned on, the pre-event buffer that's actually built into the camera system itself goes back 30 seconds prior to record what may have happened prior to the event, and the officer actually recording the event on their body-worn camera.
Giving a bigger perspective of the event and what might have happened
prior to lead up to the event. Absolutely. So our officers, there are very specific guidelines as to how they're going to use them and when they're going to use them. But as I previously stated, our officers are pretty comfortable with camera technology as it is. So I think it will be an easy integration for all the officers to be able to use these and wear these and be comfortable wearing them, with the understanding of that it's a great asset to the department. The other big thing, I think, for the officers and for our department is not only for transparency, but the supervisors of our department are tasked with reviewing camera footage. And the reason why they do that is because, A, they want to make sure that the officers are tactically doing things safe and sound out on the road. And we can also use it as a training guideline. If our supervisors see something that an officer may be doing improperly, we can use that as a training guideline for the supervisor to conduct a training session with the officer to better enhance their skills on motor vehicle stops, on police-citizen interactions, and basically general communication. So there are a host of benefits for the body-worn camera for the officers.
With the advent of new technology, there's always a discussion about how policy lags behind technology. But I think in this case, there are clear guidelines from the Attorney General's office on how to help the police operate and use these cameras. You want to talk about that? I think
Yes,
that's important
absolutely.
for the
In 2015,
public.
the New Jersey Attorney General set forth a directive for all law enforcement agencies. And basically what the directive dealt with, it's 25 pages long. It dealt with all of the procedures that they want to see enacted if your agency currently uses body-worn cameras. The 25-page directive basically gives operational guidelines to all of the police departments on the usage of the camera, when to use it, when not to use it, the privacy issues that come involved with using it, how to maintain the body-worn camera files, how long the retention periods of the body-worn camera files, how long they must be maintained, who is allowed access to the body-worn camera files. For example, the internal affairs officer who's in charge of all internal affairs for the police department at every police department basically has unfettered access because to the body-worn camera footage because it allows them to conduct any investigations that they need to conduct. But an officer might not have the same permissions. A patrol officer might not have the same permissions as the internal affairs officer that's in charge. So the guidelines are very strict in how we use them, and they're very specific to how we use them and when we can use them. And there's also instances when we can't use them. When you walk into a hospital, for instance, there's very strict HIPAA guidelines in regards to when you can record. So in certain instances, when we walk into a hospital, we walk into the emergency room, we might have to turn the camera off because of privacy issues and privacy concerns. So just because the body-worn camera footage is being recorded doesn't mean that there aren't privacy regulations when you go into someone's private premises, hospital, and certain areas where people don't want to be recorded.
So these guidelines, in your opinion, are clear, prescriptive, and direct to be able to help police departments understand this new technology and how to implement it?
Absolutely. In fact, what our police department did was we took the Attorney General directive and we enhanced it even further. The New Jersey Attorney General typically gives guidelines for police departments on all different law enforcement related matters, and when our department gets those types of items, what we do is we further enhance the policy. You have to follow the policy to the letter of the law, but we further enhance the policy to tailor it to what might be more specific to our department. So we basically can make the policy more stringent than the Attorney General directive, but not less strict, less restrictive.
I believe we got a partial grant to help fund this. Why don't you talk about that, and then just tell us why you think at the end of the day, between the use of the body-worn cameras and the car cameras, why Plainsboro residents should feel confident that it's going to be a real service to them, the police department, and the township.
Sure. Approximately at the end of the calendar year of 2015, there were grants that were floated out there by the Middlesex County Prosecutor's Office through the federal government for applications for body-worn camera grants. The Plainsboro Police Department took it upon ourselves to initiate the grant and put in for the process. And subsequent to that, our department was approved for the entire amount of the grant, so it purchased all of the body-worn cameras for all of our officers, up to and including $500. So they purchased 50% of the cost of the actual body-worn camera. It covered 50% of the cost, and the Township of Plainsboro put up the other 50% of the cost. So it helped to offset the cost, and quite frankly, I think the value in and of itself in regards to civil matters will pay themselves off in the long run much more for the Township of Plainsboro.
I would agree. Just talk to me, as a wrap-up of, why you feel confident that, the body-worn cameras and the regular cameras in the cars are going to be a real asset to the police department and the township and the residents.
Okay. As I previously stated, I think that the township residents, our township has always, and our officers have always had a good relationship with the citizens that we serve. We're a very community-oriented police department. We do a lot of programs. I think that for the people who are the naysayers and question law enforcement and question what we do and how we do it, I think the body cameras allow us to have, and allow the citizens to have a little bit more confidence in us and the things that we do, and the transparency issue of we're doing things the right way every day that we're out there, and all of our citizen contacts. And I think at the end of the day, when anyone questions our ability and what we've done on any particular call for service or any citizen interaction, when we have this body-worn camera and it's effective and it's on, that it will document the fact that we did things and we did things the right way. One of the things that's a commonality amongst body-worn cameras, amongst all police departments in the nation, is one of the premier departments in the nation, the Rialto Police Department in California, their citizen complaints went down approximately 75% since them going to body-worn cameras. So I think when you can have, and I can tell you from personal experience having the mobile vision cameras, when you're able to show people the actual event that happened, a lot of times it helps alleviate people are generally nervous when they deal with the police. So what it does is they get to go back and we'll actually show them the footage, and it helps to alleviate any kind of experiences that they may have thought happened a lot of times, and we're able to clear up misunderstandings and things that happen on car stops or citizen interactions. So this is just one more step where the mobile vision camera is in the car. The actual body-worn camera will be with the officer. So this will be on the officer for each and every shift, and I think it will further help clear up personnel complaints and complaints against personnel even more.
There's something to be said about that old sports analogy. Now let's go to the video. So in this case, you'll have the ability to go back and look at the video and see exactly what happened.
Absolutely. I guess the only the only concern is, and sometimes you always, the video doesn't it doesn't give you every angle all the time. And that's, I guess, the unfortunate. It is just one other thing. The body-worn camera is a wide-angle lens, meaning it gives you a wide picture and a wide view of what's going on for the officer, but it doesn't give you every angle. It won't give you the perspective behind the officer per se, or depending on the angle, how far off the angle is. So I just wanted to let the citizens know that it's not the panacea, the be-all, end-all, but it is certainly a great enhancement to what we currently do in law enforcement, and it's something I think that the citizens and the officers of Plainsboro will overall be pretty happy with at the end of the day.
So when can the residents expect to see the body cameras in operation? Okay,
as per the New Jersey Attorney General directive, we had to complete a general order before that was done, and then moving forward, the anticipated training date begins August 9th for all of the officers. Any officers that are currently on vacation or out of the office for whatever reason will be trained upon them getting back to the office. We will notify everyone through our township website, our police department Facebook page, showing a picture of the actual body-worn camera and what it looks like and what they can expect to see the officer wearing prior to the actual effective go date. And so we anticipate by the middle to the end of August, every officer will be outfitted with the body-worn camera, and we'll have them on their person.
Thanks, Chief, and thanks for joining us today and explaining how the body cameras will work, and I think the public will have a much better understanding of that. So thank you for joining us today on I Am Plainsboro.